You know, when you think of Iceland, you think of Vikings. These guys were incredible sailors and traders. They settled Iceland way back in the 9th century. But here's the thing, they didn't have their own coins. It's a common misconception. People think Vikings were all about treasure chests full of gold coins, but the reality was a bit different. For everyday business, they used a system of barter. A farmer might trade wool for tools, or a fisherman might trade dried fish for grain. It was all about what something was worth in goods, not in money. This system worked for them for a very long time. It was simple, direct, and everyone understood the value of real things. For larger transactions, or when dealing with foreign merchants, they needed something more standardized. This is where hack silver comes in. Hack silver is a fascinating piece of history. It wasn't coins, it was literally hacked up pieces of silver. A Viking might have a silver bracelet, a brooch, or even a piece of a silver plate. When they needed to buy something, they would chop off a piece of the silver and weigh it. The value was based purely on the weight and purity of the silver. It didn't matter if it was a fancy piece of jewelry or a plain chunk of metal. Silver was silver. This was their version of a bank account, worn right on their arm. This system tells you a lot about the Viking mindset. They were practical people. They didn't care about a king's face on a coin. They cared about the real, tangible value of the metal. We see this all the time at the shop. Someone brings in an old coin, and the first thing we do is check what it's made of. Gold, silver, copper, the metal itself has inherent value. The Vikings understood this better than anyone. They used scales to get the weight just right. It was a very honest and straightforward way of doing business, even if it meant chopping up beautiful artifacts. It was the ultimate form of cash on the barrelhead. So for centuries, Iceland got by without official currency. They used English pennies, German coins, and even Arabic dirhams that came through their vast trading networks. But these were all foreign. They were valued for their silver content, not because they were official money in Iceland. It wasn't until Iceland came under the influence of other kingdoms that the idea of a standardized national currency started to take hold. This early period is crucial. It sets the stage for a long and interesting story of how a small island nation developed its own unique money, a story that reflects its own journey toward independence. It's a classic tale of starting with nothing and building something to last. Fast forward a few hundred years, Iceland becomes part of the Kalmar Union and eventually comes under the rule of Denmark. This changed everything, including what was in people's pockets. Starting in the 16th century, Danish coins became the official currency of Iceland. This wasn't a choice, it was a rule. The Danish king was the boss, and his money was what you had to use. This made trade with Denmark and the rest of its territories a lot easier. You didn't have to weigh out hack silver anymore. A Danish rigsdaler was a rigsdaler, whether you were in Copenhagen or Reykjavik. It brought a new level of order to the economy. The main coins used during this long period were the Danish rigsdaler and the skilling. Think of the rigsdaler as the dollar and the skilling as the cent. There were 96 skillings in one rigsdaler. These coins were minted in Denmark or other parts of the kingdom, like Norway. They featured the portrait of the reigning Danish monarch. You'd see kings like Christian IV or Frederick VII on the coins. For the average Icelander, this was a constant reminder of who was in charge. The money they used every day had the face of a king who lived hundreds of miles away across a rough sea. It was a symbol of their political reality. The coins themselves were typical for the era. The larger denominations, like the rigsdaler, were made of silver. The smaller skilling coins were often made of copper or a cheaper silver alloy. The designs were very formal and European. You had the king's bust on one side, called the obverse. On the other side, the reverse, you'd usually find the Danish coat of arms. It was all very official, very royal. There was nothing uniquely Icelandic about these coins. They were a tool of the Danish Empire, used to standardize trade and project the king's authority across his lands, including the far-flung island of Iceland. This situation lasted for a very, very long time. For nearly 400 years, Icelanders used Danish money. Imagine that in America. It would be like using British pounds until just 100 years ago. It shows you how long Iceland was tied to Denmark. While it simplified commerce, it also meant that Iceland's economy was tied directly to Denmark's. If Denmark had financial problems, Iceland had financial problems. This lack of monetary control was a big deal. It became one of the key issues as Icelanders began to dream of governing themselves. The story of their coins is the story of their independence. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were a time of great change for Iceland. A powerful independence movement was growing. people wanted more control over their own affairs. In 1918, Iceland became a sovereign state in a personal union with Denmark. This was a huge step. It meant Iceland was its own country, but they still shared the same king. One of the first things a new country wants is its own money. It's a symbol of identity, of nationhood. So, in 1922, Iceland took a major step and minted its very first coins. This was a moment of immense national pride. These first coins were not a completely new currency. They were still part of the krona system shared with Denmark. But for the first time, the coins were specifically for Iceland. The set included 10, 25, and 50 örar coins, as well as 1 krona and 2 kronor coins. The örar are like cents, with 100 örar making up 1 krona. The 10 and 25 örar were made of copper-nickel, while the larger krona coins were made of aluminum bronze. This choice of metals was practical and reflected the economic realities of the time. They needed coins that were durable but not too expensive to produce. The design of these coins is really interesting. It shows the delicate political situation Iceland was in. On one side, you had the crowned monogram of King Christian X of Denmark, CX. This showed that the link to the Danish crown was still there, but on the other side, you had the coat of arms of Iceland, surrounded by the words Iceland and the value of the coin. This was the Icelandic part. It was a coin that said, "We are Iceland, but we still recognize the king." It was a balancing act, a compromise captured in metal. For the people using them, it was a daily reminder of their new semi-independent status. These first coins were a massive hit in Iceland. People collected them and cherished them. It was more than just money. It was a tangible piece of their national identity. Before this, they were using coins that could have been from anywhere in the Danish Empire. Now they had coins that said Iceland right on them. It might seem like a small thing, but symbols are powerful. Having your own coins is like having your own flag. It tells the world who you are. This first series of coins, minted from 1922 to the early 1940s, paved the way for a fully independent Icelandic currency. It was the first chapter in Iceland's modern monetary history. In 1926, something really unusual happened in the world of Icelandic coins. They introduced a new set of örar coins with a very distinct feature. They had a hole in the middle. This included the 1, 2, and 5 örar coins. Now, you might ask, why put a hole in a coin? It seems strange, but there was a very practical reason for it. These were coins of very low value, and the government wanted to save on metal, which was expensive. By punching a hole in the center, they could produce the coins using less bronze. It was a clever bit of economic engineering. These holy coins, as collectors sometimes call them, were also designed to be easily distinguishable from other coins. In a time when many people might not have been able to read well, being able to identify a coin by touch was very important. You could immediately feel the hole and know you were holding one of the low-value örar coins. This prevented confusion with the more valuable 10 and 25 örar coins, which were solid. It's a great example of design serving a real-world purpose. The coins were simple, functional, and smart. They solved a problem in a very elegant way. The design, aside from the hole, was very straightforward. On one side, you had the crowned monogram of King Christian X, just like the other coins of the era. This continued to acknowledge the union with Denmark. On the other side, you had the value, the word Iceland, and the year of minting. There were no fancy pictures or complex symbols. The focus was on clarity and function. The 1, 2, and 5 örar coins were all made of bronze and were produced for several years, becoming a familiar part of daily life in Iceland during the 1920s and 30s. These coins with holes are fascinating to collectors today. They are not particularly rare or valuable, but they tell a great story. They represent a period of thrift and practicality in Iceland's history. They also stand out visually from almost any other modern European coin. When we see something unique like this at the shop, it always gets our attention. It's not just about the metal, it's about the story behind the design. The holy coins of 1926 are a perfect example of that. They are a small but memorable chapter in the history of Icelandic money, showing how innovation can come in very simple forms. World War II changed the world, and, well, it completely changed Iceland's path. In 1940, Germany occupied Denmark. This severed the link between Iceland and the Danish government. Suddenly, Iceland was on its own. The British, and later the Americans, occupied Iceland to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. This period, known in Iceland as the Blessed War, brought a lot of foreign soldiers and honestly, a lot of money onto the island. It also pushed Iceland to take the final step toward full independence. On June 17, 1944, the Republic of Iceland was formally established. A new nation was born. With the king gone and a republic declared, Iceland needed new coins. The old coins with the king's monogram were no longer appropriate. So, in 1944, a new series of coins was designed. This was a moment of incredible significance. For the first time ever, Icelandic coins would have no connection to a foreign monarch. They would be purely Icelandic. The new coins featured the Icelandic coat of arms. This coat of arms is spectacular. It's supported by 4 guardian spirits from Icelandic sagas: a dragon, a griffin, a bull, and a giant. These symbols represent the protection of Iceland. The new coins were issued in the same denominations as before: 1, 2, 5, 10, and 25 orar, and 1 and 2 kronur. However, the designs were completely new. The king's monogram was gone, replaced by the proud Icelandic coat of arms. The crown that used to sit on top of the shield was also removed, symbolizing the end of the monarchy. The coins were made of bronze and copper nickel, but during the war there were material shortages. This led to some interesting variations. For example, the 1944 coins were minted in zinc instead of bronze and copper nickel. These zinc coins are a cool piece of history, a direct result of wartime necessity. This new currency was more than just money. It was a declaration of freedom. Every time an Icelander held one of these coins, they were holding a piece of their new republic. It was a symbol of their hard-won sovereignty and their unique national identity, rooted in their ancient sagas and guardian spirits. For Americans, you can compare it to the feeling of first seeing coins that said, "United States of America," instead of showing a British king. It's a powerful statement. These coins, born from the turmoil of war and the joy of independence, mark the true beginning of Iceland's modern currency. After the Republic was founded in 1944, the orar coins continued to be the small change of Iceland. They were, the pennies and nickels of the Icelandic economy. The series consisted of the 1, 5, 10, and 50 orar coins, while the 2 orar coin was discontinued for a while. These coins went through several design changes and metal compositions over the years, reflecting the changing economic times. They might be small in value, but honestly, their story is a big part of Iceland's monetary history. These were the coins people used for small daily purchases, the coins that jingled in every pocket. Let's talk about the designs for a moment. The post-war orar coins were quite simple. The 1 irir, by the way, that's the singular of orar, coin was made of bronze and was very small. It just had the value 1 on one side and the Icelandic coat of arms on the other. The 5 and 10 orar coins were also bronze and followed a similar simple design, but the real change came with the 50 orar coin. For a long time it was made of a copper-nickel alloy and its design was also simple, featuring the value in the national coat of arms. These coins were workhorses. They were meant to be functional, not flashy. As the years went by, inflation started to become a problem. This is something every country deals with, honestly. The value of money goes down, and it costs more to make a coin than the coin is actually worth. This is exactly what happened to the orar. The 1 irir coin was last minted for circulation in 1957. The 5 and 10 orar coins stuck around a bit longer, but by the 1970s, their purchasing power had become so small that they were barely used. They were a bit like the American penny today. Many people feel it's more trouble than it's worth. Eventually, the orar coins were phased out completely. After a major currency reform in 1981, which we'll get to, the orar coins were no longer minted for circulation. They officially became obsolete. Today, you can't spend an irir in Iceland. Prices are all rounded to the nearest krona, but these little coins are a fascinating part of history. They represent an era in Iceland's economy. Finding an old orar coin is like finding a little time capsule. It tells a story of a time when small change mattered, a story of a growing nation and the economic challenges it faced. They are a classic example of how money evolves. While the RR were the small change, the kronur coins were the backbone of the Icelandic currency after 1944. These were the coins used for more significant purchases. The main denominations were the 1 krona and 2 kronur coins. Later, as inflation grew, higher denominations like the 5, 10, and 50 kronur coins were introduced. The story of these coins is, honestly, the story of Iceland's post-war economy. They show how the country grew and how the value of its money changed over time. These were the real workhorse coins of the Republic. The early 1 krona and 2 kronur coins were made of aluminum bronze. They featured the Icelandic Republican coat of arms on one side, with the 4 guardian spirits. This was a powerful symbol of the new nation. The other side simply showed the value. These coins were a constant visible reminder of Iceland's independence. They circulated for many years and became a familiar part of everyday life. They were solid, dependable coins for a solid, dependable new country. It was the kind of money that gave people confidence in their new government and their future. As the decades passed, new kronur coins were needed. In 1967, a 10 kronur coin was introduced, followed by a 5 kronur coin in 1969 and a 50 kronur coin in 1970. These new coins were made of a copper-nickel alloy. What's really cool about these coins is their designs. Instead of just the coat of arms, they started featuring things that were uniquely Icelandic. The 10 kronur coin, for example, featured a squid, and the 50 kronur coin had a shore crab on it. This was a fantastic shift. The coins started to celebrate Iceland's nature and its connection to the sea. This series of kronur coins, from the 1 krona up to the 50 kronur, served Iceland well for many years. However, by the late 1970s, high inflation had seriously eroded their value. A 50 kronur coin just didn't buy what it used to. The entire currency system was becoming unwieldy. People were carrying around large numbers of coins for simple transactions. The government realized that a drastic change was needed. This set the stage for one of the most important events in Iceland's monetary history, the currency reform of 1981. The old kronur with their crabs and squids were about to become history. By 1980, inflation in Iceland was out of control. The money had lost so much value that the numbers were getting ridiculously large. Prices were in the thousands of kronur for everyday items. The government decided it was time for a fresh start. On January 1st, 1981, Iceland underwent a major currency reform. They essentially created a new krona. What they did was revalue the currency at a rate of 100 to 1. This means that 100 of the old kronur became worth just 1 new krona. It was like lopping 2 zeros off of every price tag in the country. This reform meant that a whole new set of coins was needed. The old orar and kronur coins were withdrawn from circulation. The new system was much simpler. The orar were gone for good. The new coins were the 5, 10, and 50 orar, which were really just temporary and quickly faded, and the 1 and 5 kronur coins. The new 1 krona coin was now worth what 100 old kronur had been worth the day before. This was a huge psychological shift for the public. It simplified accounting and made the currency feel more stable and valuable again. It was a bold move, but honestly, a necessary one. The design of these new coins is what makes them truly special. The government decided to dedicate the entire series to Iceland's marine life. This was a brilliant idea, celebrating the industry that is the lifeblood of the nation. Fishing. The 1 krona coin features a codfish, the most important fish in Iceland's history and economy. The 5 kronur coin shows 2 dolphins. The 10 kronur coin has 4 kaplan, a small but vital fish. And the 50 kronur coin features a shore crab. These designs are beautiful, modern, and deeply meaningful. They connect the nation's money directly to its identity and livelihood. This new series of coins was a huge success. They were introduced in 1981 and are, with some modifications, still the coins used in Iceland today. The reform stabilized the currency and gave the country a monetary system that was fit for the modern world. Higher value coins, the 50 and 100 kronur, were added later as needed. For anyone visiting Iceland, these fish coins are one of the first things you notice. They are a constant reminder of how important the ocean is to this island nation. The 1981 reform wasn't just a financial decision, it was a reimagining of what Iceland's money could represent. Today, if you go to Iceland, the coins you'll use are the direct descendants of that 1981 reform. They are a beautiful and practical set of money that tells a story about the nation. The current circulation coins are the 1, 5, 10, 50, and 100 kronur. The orar are long gone, a relic of a different economic time. The lowest value coin, the 1 krona, is made of nickel-plated steel and still proudly features the Atlantic cod. It's a small coin, but it represents the foundation of the Icelandic economy. It's the coin that started it all in the new system. The other coins continue the theme of marine life. The 5 kronur coin, also nickel-plated steel, shows the 2 dolphins. The 10 kronur coin, with its 4 kapellin, is made of the same material. In 1987, a 50 kronur coin was introduced. This one is larger and made of a nickel-brass alloy, giving it a golden color. It features the shore crab, just like one of the older coins, but in a new, modernized design. Finally, in 1995, the 100 kronur coin was introduced. This is the highest value coin in circulation. It's also made of nickel brass and features the lump sucker, a very unique-looking fish. These coins are more than just currency, they are ambassadors for Iceland. Every tourist who visits takes a few of these coins home. They are beautiful souvenirs that perfectly capture the spirit of the country. The designs are clean, artistic, and educational. They show a nation that is proud of its natural resources and its connection to the sea. In a world where many coins just have portraits of politicians or generic national symbols, Iceland's choice to celebrate its marine fauna is refreshing and memorable. It makes their money stand out. Looking to the future, the fate of these coins is the same as coins everywhere. More and more, people are using credit cards and digital payments, especially in a tech-savvy country like Iceland. The use of physical cash is declining. However, these coins will always have a place in history. From hacksilver and Danish skillings, to royal monograms and republican coats of arms, and finally to the fish that sustain the nation, Icelandic coins tell the story of a people's journey. They are a physical record of their fight for independence, their economic struggles, and their deep love for their island home. And that's a story worth more than any price you can stamp on a piece of